I mean, but so your kids, their experience. I mean, they're traveling with a world-class molecular biologist all over Europe. I mean, that's quite a homeschooling experience.
We had a lot of fun.
Folks, welcome back to the Anchor Podcast. A very exciting day at CLT. Excited to introduce you all to Dr. Susan Morrow. Dr. Susan Morrow is our new ambassador to the U.S. Service Academies and is the director of homeschool partnerships here at CLT. Susan has a broad range of experience in academia, having been involved in education from the prenatal period to the postgraduate level. Susan earned her BS in honors biology from The Ohio State University and a PhD in molecular biology and biochemistry from Louisiana State University, my alma mater as well. Following 6 years of postdoctoral medical research with a focus on transgenics and in utero gene therapy, she left the lab to become a stay-at-home mom. Very soon after that, she began to fall in love with the idea of homeschooling, and she spent 2 decades homeschooling her children through high school. Prior to joining CLT, Susan helped to found the Baby Plus for Good Foundation, whose mission is to improve the future of babies who start from the most disadvantaged beginnings through environmental enrichment, serving as Director of Development and Executive Director. While doing so, she was simultaneously teaching undergraduate anatomy and physiology. Susan splits time between New Orleans and Annapolis, 2 great cities, and is the mother of a United States Naval Academy graduate, currently serving as an aviation intelligence officer aboard the USS Nimitz, and a second-year Naval ROTC midshipman at Tulane University. Dr. Susan Morrow, welcome to CLT. Welcome to the Anchor Podcast.
Thank you, Jeremy. I'm thrilled to be here.
So we've had some fascinating conversations about your childhood before, a childhood I've never talked to somebody that had your exact childhood. It's kind of an incredible story. The home you grew up in is not the typical home. Tell us about that.
No, I grew up in a funeral home. My father was a 3rd-generation funeral director. And so I grew up in literally the same home that my father and my grandfather had grown up in.
So passed down in the families, but you're, as a little girl, I mean, you're processing that, as you said in our conversation,
we had
bodies
downstairs. Yes, it was a 3-story house, and we lived on the 2nd floor and the 3rd floor. But I didn't know when I came home from school who was going to be there quite often. And I think you just get used to it, right? You know that it's what Daddy does.
It's always been normal,
right? It's what Daddy does. But the worst side of it, though, is I developed a distaste for the smell of flowers.
Oh,
because our house was always full of roses and carnations. I mean, by the dozens and dozens. Right. And to this day, I detest the smell of roses. I love them, but I can't smell them. So, but strange things like that, my cousins and my friends wouldn't spend the night. My father was just accustomed to taking them home in the middle of the night, wherever they happened to live. I did have a really interesting set of dreams that you would have as a little kid. Everybody has little kids,
like a recurring dream,
right? But mine were about my house, So, but again, it's one of those things you grow out of.
Yeah,
it's always been a great conversation starter.
For sure. Now tell us about school. Were you Christian school, Catholic school, public school? What was that like?
Well, I grew up in rural Ohio, and very homogeneous white Anglo-Saxon Protestant agricultural area. Okay. And there really weren't any private schools where I grew up. There was one Catholic school quite a distance away, but most of the kids that went to that school were recruited for sports, and they were really good at it. Now, if you went closer to Columbus or Cincinnati, there were all kinds of private schools, but we were just rural schools. And I think I had a very decent public education.
And I think back then it was. I mean, this is 70s.
Yes.
Back then it was 70s and 80s. It was. I think it was better.
Oh, I absolutely agree.
Just across the board.
Yes. I didn't ever feel, and looking back, I don't feel like anyone tried to indoctrinate me.
Uh-huh.
We were raised, I mean, again, I graduated from high school in 83. You weren't constantly feeling the friction of all of the different social groups that exist now that did not exist then, really, in the mainstream. And so I didn't ever feel pressured to be in one group or another. And I had a couple of phenomenal high school teachers that really guided me. A science teacher who introduced me to the concept of genetic engineering.
Okay. So tell me about this, because you go on to get your PhD in biochemistry, which sounds kind of difficult to me. When did this love for science begin?
In high school.
Okay.
Definitely in high school. In my family, we were raised, it was just assumed that you were going to college. Okay. No one talked about it. It was just assumed that you were going to come home with a great report card. And my parents weren't involved in my schooling, like I believe parents must be now. Okay. Because, the curriculum was just reading, writing, arithmetic, right? And my grandmother was an educator. So my father's mother had a master's degree, which was not common for someone at that time. My other grandmother went to school through 7th grade. So even though they had very different backgrounds, they both poured into my life equally with so much wisdom. I am so thankful. I just had a really great extended family. I knew 2 great grandparents. So I had lots of grandparents, and that makes a difference.
We haven't talked about this thinking, even when I think about earliest memories in school, memories even in middle school and high school, there was a trust the science concept that only grew. But now we've gotten to a place where mainstream education is really influenced by ideology in a way that seems to actually be in tension with just objective science. Is that fair?
And I think that's very fair. And science, whether it's climate change or what went on with COVID, which that's a disaster, or the science behind big pharma or big food industry, it's all about money and ideology.
Wow.
And it's really a disaster for those who want to go into research, because you're going to be pulled one way or another. And somewhere along the line, there's a very good chance that you're going to have to say or do something that you really didn't anticipate and that you don't believe in.
Yeah.
And that was so obvious during COVID. Oh my goodness, when we are subverting the dominant paradigm, saying things that 99% of the life scientists in the world knew were not true.
Yeah.
And we could do a whole series on that.
Science in its purest form, I mean, it's in some ways the study of reality itself. Like it is. Absolutely. It is this confrontation with truth, the way things are. And that, but I get, I mean, you're saying the field as a whole, though, in many ways has been captured for a long time.
It has been for quite a while. And again, when we start, no matter what question you're looking at, the basis of science, when you're in research, there are always going to be 2 sides. And you're always, when I was doing my dissertation was on post-transcriptional regulation of the human thymidine kinase gene. Okay. So this particular gene is what's called a housekeeping gene. It's a gene that's turned on and off in specific ways, but it's regulated in this very elegant manner that only God could have come up with.
Wow.
Okay. And so we study gene regulation to find patterns, right? Because God is a God of order.
Yeah.
And so there are certain patterns that we find. And then my theory was that there was this very specific pattern of gene splicing that led to the regulation of this gene throughout the cell cycle. It's a cell cycle gene. Well, there were 5 other labs throughout the world that had other theories. So even when you say you're looking at truth, we are trying to find the truth. And even when we think we know it, we don't necessarily know it. Because when you're doing things on the molecular level, it's like studying gravity hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
We're studying things that we cannot see. So it makes it a
So
little tough.
this is something I find very interesting about your background. And so you are, you're a prayer warrior. You describe yourself as evangelical. You have a huge heart for Christ and ministry, and this love for science. And I think certainly since probably the early, I think a lot of people would say since the Scopes trial in the 1920s, that there was kind of this anti-intellectualism that really kind of took ownership over a lot of American Christianity, and you had evangelicals really fleeing from things, especially like the hard sciences. So what has that been like for you? As someone, I mean, I would imagine you felt like certainly a minority. I'd imagine in your field.
Absolutely. I felt like a minority. I had someone say to me once when I was a postdoctoral research scientist that they couldn't imagine how I could be a scientist and believe in God.
Wow.
And my answer was, I can't imagine how you can be a scientist and not believe
Wow.
in God, because everything on this earth points to our Creator. Yeah. There's no way that this could just happen. There's a book that kids use in classical conversations called "It Couldn't Just Happen," because it couldn't. And the level of complexity, I used to tell my students that if I knew as much as one of my cells in my body knows to keep itself going, right, let alone all of the complexities of the interwoven systems, right? Cells make tissues, tissues makes organs, organs make systems, and all of those 11 big systems come together to make a human being. We know a fraction of what one of our cells knows to survive.
Yeah.
And it took a level of design that is beyond our wildest imagination. And we will never run out of things.
So there's this has been years. I'm thinking about being at LSU.
Well, I wasn't in Baton Rouge. I was in New Orleans.
And reading Christian apologetics, I was a new Christian, and reading about this concept called, I think, irreducible complexity, and things like the human eye, where it's very there's no evolutionary kind of story that makes sense, apart from a creation kind of moment, as well.
Well, when you look at evolutionary biology, it's interesting because my dissertation advisor is an evolutionary biologist.
Okay.
I was not of that mindset. So he had two parallel projects. I chose the one that did not have an evolutionary bent to it because I don't believe it. Oh. And there are evolutionary trends, but when we look at that, we're looking at evolution with a little e, not a big E. Mm-hmm. We're looking at
microevolution.
Exactly. Yeah. Changes, which we know that occurs, but not something crawling out of the primordial ooze and then developing to be humans. Exactly. There's no way that we could develop the 11 major body systems that we have through evolution. I mean, and to me, it's obvious, but it isn't to everyone. It's just like so many things.
It is academia, right? 40 years ago or 20 years ago? Or...
I think more so now.
Okay.
I really do. And it's a slow moving train.
Yeah.
But I really do believe that, and I think a lot of it is because of communication. So many people are not introduced to science at the level that you have to have a bit of a conversational understanding of, right?
Sure.
And now with so much more available, even on social media. I know it sounds crazy, but people are getting more interested. And honestly, I think there is this really slow rolling revival going on.
I think so too.
And I love it. I love what's going on at the college level. I love it with, I'm very athletic oriented, and I'm big in love with college football. And I love seeing these college football players just professing their faith and then having rallies and being involved in mentoring.
I think Charlie Kirk's funeral there was just no doubt that America's maybe in the beginning of a really beautiful spiritual revival that's been needed for such a long time. All right, I'm wondering if you could tell us about, you made this huge life decision 25 years ago. You're a successful molecular biologist. I believe you had, what was it, a big milestone in your professional career back then?
We
The
did.
first.
We were doing in utero gene therapy for cystic fibrosis. Wow. And we were studying the disease in the mouse model. There is a mouse that has been genetically engineered to get CF. And basically, to not go into a lot of detail, we cured CF in the mouse model. Well, that had never happened before. We got a Lancet publication out of it, and our lab was really, starting to roll. We were really making some headway. There were a few bumps along the road. Not everyone's excited if you cure a disease. And I'm saying that with quotation marks. But if you look at cancer employs more people than it kills. Wow. So not everyone gets really excited when you make great strides. They love it when you produce a drug to treat patients with, but that again is a very long story. So we were in a really great position, and I was very career oriented. I was told many years before that I couldn't have children. So then I gave my life to the Lord, and I thought, nothing's impossible for him. And I battled with it in my mind. Will this happen? Won't this happen? And one day I said, all right, Lord, it's yours. If I'm supposed to have children, I will. If I'm not, I won't. In less than a month, I was pregnant. Wow. And that's after years of carrying this on my shoulders. And I started to think about how I was going to handle this, because I'm very into my career. A lot like other careers, you're at the beginning. As a postdoc, you're in the equivalency of a residency. And I thought, what am I going to do? And I knew that even though I had been introduced, there were no feminists in my family. Well, there were a few, but introduced to that concept that a woman was supposed to have a career, right? It just didn't feel right to me. And the closer I got to delivery, the more I thought, there's no way I can turn my child over to childcare. And I didn't have to. That was the thing. I was in a position, I was very, very blessed that I didn't have to. So I made the decision to leave my career, which was right at the point where I was writing NIH grants. We had great grant scores. This was the time where I would leave the postdoctoral world and begin running my own lab and starting my own research project. So it was like straight up and then boom. But I never regret it.
I think of my friend Molly Carter. Maybe I'll send this podcast where Molly she went to law school at Harvard Law and got recruited by a big firm in Manhattan, in law school, worked for a couple years, had her first baby, took off for 6 weeks, went back, and about 3 hours in on her first day, quit and never again.
I understand.
And that in no way is because I think it's a journey each mom has to navigate, and
absolutely.
And it's I think a lot of women can experience, judgment on one side or the other. My wife and I talk about this all the time. But you left a very successful career, a top level scientist, to be a stay-at-home mom, and then you discover homeschooling.
Well, it's kind of funny too, because when I was in graduate school, my sister, who's younger than me, was already married. Her husband was in medical school, and they had 2 children at the time. And she started homeschooling her oldest. And my grandmother, who had been in education all of her life, she was a teacher. And I would have conversations about it. And I said, I can't believe she's homeschooling. She needs to get a job to support her husband, who's in medical school.
Sure.
And so that really has been a family joke since then, that here the one who totally threw in everything to homeschooling, initially said, that's so crazy. But again, it's just like, no matter what you're doing with your children, your family, every family is different. Every situation is different. Every homeschooling home is different. There is no cookie cutter.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of anti-homeschooling initially, but then when I had my own daughter, I started to see that you literally homeschool from day one.
Totally.
And someone had told me about a book called How to Have a Smarter Baby, if you've ever heard of it.
Okay.
It's an interesting little paperback, and I found a used one, and I bought it, and I'm like, this makes so much sense to me because it's about stimulating your five senses, right? And that's how we learn. We don't just learn through our eyes. All five of our senses are integrated. And that's why, learning, so to speak, begins in the womb because the baby can feel movement. The baby hears sound. That's what the foundation that I worked with was all about, prenatal auditory stimulation. And so I knew that everything I did during my pregnancy affected my daughter.
Yeah.
And here I'm in my 30s, so I'm not a young mom. This is my first baby that I had at 35. And so I worked very hard at my diet, at working out, all of these things. So once I had her, I'm like, I have to keep her pure and perfect, which you got to get over that. But I tried for a long time. And so I really, really focused on enrichment.
Yeah.
And I read from the beginning. We were constantly, my house was a giant library. And when my daughter was 2, I'm still playing around with this idea, can I homeschool? Because it's so daunting.
Sure.
To think you're going to take all of that responsibility upon your own shoulders. And I thought, I don't know. I don't know if I can do this or not. So she was 2, and I was reading a book to her, one of her favorites, and she started reading it to me at 2 years old. And I'm like, how are you doing this? And she had been listening to what I was saying and looking at the words, and she decoded it, right? So from then on, it was like a sprint. How many books? She hid books in the towels in the bathroom. There were books everywhere. She constantly read. And to the point that it actually had an effect on her vision. So her eye muscles developed asymmetrically. So she had to go into eye therapy to bring her eyes back because it was causing her headaches. Because we're not really designed to read at 2 years old. That's kind of the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
So when and I'm still tossing this around, I'm going to a MOPS group at my church, mothers preschoolers, and I found a few homeschool moms there, and I thought, well, maybe I can do this, right? So then, she was, I guess, 4.5. I had her tested, and she was reading at 4.5 on an 8th grade level of comprehension, which I knew she, was a little ahead of the curve. But I thought, okay, this would be a recipe for disaster to put her in school.
Yeah.
So I had made up my mind, but that was the nail. Right. So from that point on, I knew.
And then tell us, when you look back at that chapter of your life, what are some of the memories that you will always kind of relish the most?
When I gave in to what I know that the Lord had for me, it was such peace. And knowing that I never had to be away from my kids, that I could be pouring into them my beliefs, and I could indoctrinate them on my own instead of letting someone else do it, which I love that idea. It was a challenge, yet at the same time, it was just such a beautiful thing to me. I was so excited about this adventure. And we were very fortunate. We traveled a lot during homeschool. We called ourselves the Never at Home School. And so I got to show them things and teach them things and expose them to worldviews, because I had lived in Europe. I did a postdoc at Erasmus Medical School in Rotterdam. And I loved, I saw what you posted this morning of the cathedral, right? I love the way Europe feels. Well, the parts of it that survived World War II, of course. And I had been in a little town called Amiens in north of Paris, and they had a cathedral there that took 800 years to build.
Amiens Cathedral.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like, we can't even make it through a 4-year administration and hold it together, right? And these people did it for 800 years. So I loved to show those kinds of things. And it really, I think,
I mean, and and they're both two girls. Is that right?
my daughter is
And
the
your
oldest of my
son
sons.
is at two.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, but you, so your kids, their experience. I mean, they're traveling with a world class molecular biologist all over Europe. I mean, that's quite a homeschooling experience.
We had a lot of fun.
You know, okay, love that. And so we are so thrilled for you. You know, here in this new role at CLT, you've got such a passion for the service academies, and you've got such a passion for homeschoolers. You've got such a passion for CLT. How do these things combine for you?
It's a God thing. I mean, the fact that these things intersected at this time and place in my life and in CLT, right? I saw in the Wall Street Journal that Secretary of War Hegseth had determined that the CLT could be used for service academy admissions. This was just in September. And when I saw that, I've been coming to Annapolis for years and
we
years.
first met in 2019.
Yeah, in 2019 we met because I had seen a webinar that you had produced, and I cold called and said, "Hey, I'm going to be in Annapolis visiting my daughter at the academy. I'd love to stop by." And I did, and I was so impressed with what you were doing. I knew it was a necessity then, and I mean, everyone knows, everyone is beginning to know that, and it's even more so now, especially after the just the debacle of the past 4 years educationally. But it was just like the right time and place.
Yeah.
And when I sent you an email saying congratulations, because that had passed through my mind before.
Sure.
What a great opportunity, because the academies want the best and the brightest.
Yeah.
They need students with critical thinking capabilities. We all need our officers in the military to have critical thinking capabilities. And this is one way that we can
this
judge
is
that.
big stuff because if you think about it like this, I mean that America's security, depends on our military, and our military depends in many ways on the strength of our academies.
Absolutely.
And the strength of our academies depends on the people we're bringing into them.
Exactly.
And I mean, I always want to be very careful because I know public school families listen to the CLT, and I've met many, many amazing public school families. I have, and I taught in public schools for years. But I mean, there's so many of these homeschoolers and classical school students that just blow your mind. Like where you just didn't know. When I first started touring some of these classical schools, I remember thinking, I didn't know this was possible for students to be like this as teenagers. And I've had the same thought in meeting a lot of these homeschoolers as well. It's incredible. And I think about, John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams was 14 when he mastered 5 European languages, had an incredible command of European history, and was serving as the private secretary to the ambassador in St. Petersburg as a 14-year-old, homeschooled, right?
Because of what was introduced to him.
Yep.
I mean, kids are sponges.
Yeah.
When you challenge them, they take on the challenge.
Yep.
And unfortunately, American education and it didn't happen overnight. This has been happening since the late 1800s, early 1900s, 100%. That we have been dumbing it down and producing less than the best. And it's the students that are suffering, and more and more and more. Now that we're teaching to the test, we survived Common Core basically. We survived a number of other attacks on the education system, but it's all there. And it's all still there. And it's going to take a lot to undo the damage that has been purposefully done. And I am thrilled when families choose to homeschool, but the school choice opportunities now are incredible. And again, when you look at an academy, and it's a different kind of kid that wants to go to an academy, because you are giving your life, and you know it. You are putting your life on the line to serve your country. And there are lots of ways that we serve our country, but that one is, my son is Navy ROTC. My daughter went to the academy. They will graduate, or they graduate from college with the exact same rank to go into the military. My daughter was an ensign going into the Navy. My son from Tulane will go in as an ensign.
Okay.
But it's a whole different ballgame. When you're at the academy, they own you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
7 days a week, 24 hours a day. My son has a pretty normal college life,
Sure.
except the fact that he has his ROTC commitments.
Yeah.
And so, ROTC produces a tremendous number of officers as well. We just don't have enough spots in the academies.
Yeah.
But my father went to the Naval Academy.
Okay.
My daughter went to the Naval Academy. Her husband, my son-in-law, who is an F-35 pilot, went to the Naval Academy. So I have a love for service academies. It's just a different mindset. And these kids are incredible.
We always conclude the Anchor podcast talking about books. And the question we like to ask is if there's one particular book that's been most formative for you, maybe a book that you've returned to and reread. And what we say is that if you're going to say the Bible, you got to pick a book in the Bible.
Ooh. Well, I'm definitely going to say the Bible.
Okay.
I have been through a lot of trials, and so I continually go back to the Bible, and it's the source of my strength. I spend a lot of time in the book of Acts. I like jumping between King James and the Amplified Bible, and sometimes a couple of others, and comparing the way man has changed the story. And it's so emotional for me because it's where, and many of us, it's where we derive our strength. And I could name a stack of books that I have beside my bed that I jump in and out of. I'm kind of hyper when it comes to that. Like I have Hegseth's book there, and I'm writing a book on holistic medicine. So I have that, and I have a lot of other, it's about as broad as you can get. But I would definitely say it has to be biblical truth that I need in my life every day.
We're here again with Dr. Susan Morrow, who is the Service Academy Ambassador for the Classic Learning Test, as well as our new Director of Homeschool Partnerships. Dr. Morrow, again, thrilled to have you here at CLT. And if anyone wants to reach out to Dr. Morrow, it is smorrow, SMORROW at cltexam.com. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.